Right. Well, welcome. Just a few, we talked about the Friday class. The last class will be next week. I'm going to be starting up a new class in the studio in Mount Horeb, starting December 2nd, Thursdays at 10. And sorry about that for those of you that are disappointed, but it's definitely time for me. Once I got back in studio, I realized how much I'm missing teaching Zoom. I love that we have that option, but I was ready to transition one of these classes Monday, Friday to an in-person option for people. So I hope you understand. What else? I got some feedback from a student this week. I don't know how long we've been in these Zoom classes, but that the singing bowl doesn't really translate, which I never realized, so I'm not going to use it today, but she said it was kind of just a cling. So if you are missing that, that's why. And we're going to do a forward bending practice today. It's a practice I'm kind of structured around leading up to a pose, a very deep forward bend called Kormasana, which is the pose of the tortoise. And so it's very deep and eventually very quieting. I don't know if you'll find that today because it is quite challenging, but we will kind of do the building blocks to ease into that pose. So that's kind of the plan for the day. So let's start as we do, just sitting and centering, taking some time with that, just kind of rocking back and forth on your sitting bones and moving the flesh out from underneath them, trying to cross at the mid shins, trying to create that descent of your thigh bones, and just taking some time to kind of balance the shoulders above the hips, lift through the top of the head, but release your shoulders down. And then just kind of coil your shoulder blades toward your chest to feel that lifting and spreading of your chest and to feel the shoulders sitting back. And then attempting to keep that, join the hands together in front of your heart. And close your eyes and just gently look away from your brain. And when we center ourselves, we kind of pass the baton from this kind of thinking brain to more of just becoming very sensory. So less making demands on the body and more kind of taking this witness stance of noticing, making inquiry and honoring where we truly are as a body, as a mind, as a heart, as a soul. Just taking enough time to let the brain kind of settle into the body. The brain, we know, likes to time travel, thinking ahead of time, thinking back in time. So maybe using your own breath as that continuous anchor back to presence. And maybe here noticing some sort of heartfelt longing, which is another word for an intention. Maybe just mentally naming that, visualizing it. As you're ready, bowing toward your heart. Release your hands. Lift your head. And let your eyes gently open. And welcome. Still getting over my cold, so pardon my voice. So like I said, we're going to kind of build into this pose, Kormasana, with a lot of the building blocks that go into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start right off with a downward facing dog. And you can just make your way to your hands and knees. Spend some time setting the pose up. So make sure that your middle fingers are aligning kind of out from the center of the wrist. The forefingers are spread wide. The thumbs aren't fully stretched from the index. You're evenly weighting into the hands. So we have to pay attention to bringing weight to the index and thumbs. Your knees are hip distance. They're right under the hips. And then take the toes underneath and pay attention to every single toe really turning under. And then on an exhalation, keeping your hips back, begin to extend your legs. And even if the legs don't fully straighten right away, try to really draw the hips away from the wrists. Try to roll the inner knees back. Stretch the heels toward the floor. Stretch the tips of your toes toward your wrists. Resist the sitting bones away from the backs of your knees. And resist the heels away from the backs of your knees. And every time you exhale, plunging the shoulder blades toward the chest. So the Kormasana pose is a deep forward, seated forward fold. So it's important that we really kind of dig into the legs a little bit. 3 more breaths. And with that third exhalation, go ahead and place your knees on the floor. Step them wide. We're coming into child's pose, so join the feet. Sit back. Stretch the arms forward, fully extend the arms. If your shoulders are uncomfortable, try scrubbing your hands toward your body to invite the long arm bones kind of into the shoulder joints. And take the very tip of the tailbone and point it toward the floor. Good. So start to crawl your hands toward your knees to bring yourself upright. And we're going to move on to our backs for one Supta Padangusasana, one hand to big toe pose, which is going to be the Parshva Supta Padangusasana. So this is where the leg moves out to the side, which is a really wonderful stretch for the inner thigh of that leg. And that's going to be a component of the Kormasana pose that we do later. So come on to your back, find your strap. And then you can take hold of your right foot just below the big toe, small toe ball mounds. And right away, you can hold your straps in your right hand and wrap the hand once so that you don't have to work so hard to hold the strap. And try to place the hand on the strap somewhere where it allows the right shoulder to sit down. One way you know is if you're looking straight up at the ceiling, you shouldn't see your shoulder in your peripheral vision. Stretch your left leg long. Anchor the left leg to the floor and try to really imprint the pelvis and the sacrum evenly across the floor. And then on an exhale, begin to guide your right leg to the right. And let your control here really be that you're not letting your weight pull to the right. So there's a limiting factor there. You have to really keep a sense of balance across the pelvis to do this pose with integrity. Because if we were standing and the pelvis rotated, we would not be standing anymore. And try to reach out. This is important for the inner thigh to actually elongate. Try to reach out through the right big toe ball mound and the right inner heel, expressing a line of energy through the kind of the inner blade edge of the foot. Also try to keep your shoulders even across the floor. Give it some breath. We're going to stay a full minute on each side. We're about halfway there on this side. Keep your chin close to your chest. Your left toes are perched right above the heel. The left inner thigh rolls down toward the floor. You're pressing the left leg against the floor. And then you're gently going to guide your leg slowly back to center. Bend the knee. Keep your right knee bent and step the foot down as you prepare to take the left leg up. Taking hold of the left foot right below the ball mounds. Grabbing hold of the strap with the left hand, dropping the shoulder back to the floor if it rounded off the floor. You can stretch your right arm out sideways and extend your right leg, really planting it on the floor. And before we move the leg sideways, notice if your foot is already kind of collapsed to the inner edge, reach up. And then keep that effort as you exhale and move the left leg to the left. Really observing that your sacrum stays even. Try to work with a straight left leg, which might mean you have to move the leg away from the torso a little bit. But we'd rather have a far away straight leg than a close bent leg. If you can bring a close straight leg, that's ideal. Give it some breath. About another 5 breaths here. So the pose, Kormasana, is kind of interesting because we do need to elongate the inner thighs, but we end up eventually actually clamping the legs toward each other. So we're going to start to move the leg back to center. Once it's there, bend the knee, take the strap away, step the foot down. And to really feel that kind of squeezing toward midline, we're going to do a reclining Garudasana, so the eagle pose. So you can go ahead and just put your arms in goalpost position. So your forearms are kind of perpendicular to your upper arms and your forearms are resting on the floor. And then you're going to draw both legs up and tuck your left leg under your right leg. And the lower legs want to fly apart. So do your best to squeeze the lower legs toward each other. And then draw both knees toward your chest. Draw your chin toward your chest. Keep pressing your elbows into the floor. Keep lifting your shoulder blades toward your chest. And just squeeze toward midline. Good. Move the knees away from the torso. Uncross the legs. Grab your shins. Draw the legs toward the torso and separate the knees. Just take a few moments here. Again, going back to nice extension of the inner thighs. Good. You can bring the knees closer together. Again, you're going to go back to your goalpost arms, palms facing up. This time the right knee tucks under the left. We squeeze the legs, lower legs toward each other, and we draw both knees toward the chest. Tuck your chin toward the chest. And gently move the knees away from the trunk. Uncross the legs. Again, take hold of your shins, squeeze the legs close, and separate the knees. Just a couple deep breaths. Okay, we're going to gently move on to our sides. We're going to do a few standing poses, just a couple forward bends standing. And you'll probably need 2 blocks. So we're going to do Padangusasana, which is our wide standing forward bend. And so you're going to work with 2 blocks. You can come up to an upright standing position. I know my head is severed here. Let me tilt the camera here. Aligning your heels with your second toes. attempting to make an equilateral triangle with your legs in the floor. And then come forward into your concave or flat back position. So the block should be right under your shoulder line. Balance the weight over the feet. So we don't want to be on the heels, on the toes. We want to really centralize the weight and use the surface area of the feet as evenly as we can. Keep looking forward just to encourage the extension of the spine. And now on an exhalation, you're going to go into a forward bend and the blocks will probably come down. And then today we're actually going to work kind of walking the blocks back toward the line running between your big toes. So you're just going to compact the pose a little more today. And go work to your own edge. Of course, there's no, you must do this ever. Just kind of work right up to your own edge. If you don't need the blocks, make sure to notice that and do minimal height under the hands. Minimal but sufficient. Don't make sure you're not kind of reaching toward the floor. And then if you see your elbows are wider than your wrists, clamp the elbows a little bit. Elbows should be only as wide as the wrists. You're just going really deep with this today, and we'll stay about 5 breaths. Three more exhales. Good. Now start to walk the hands forward again. And then use your heels and then your toes to bring the feet almost hip distance, but you're going to leave them a little bit wider than hip distance. Okay, so essentially we want the feet to be kind of just beyond the shoulder width because we're going to attempt to tuck our shoulders behind our knees. Don't get scared. It's just a practice. You can attempt it, and all practice is good practice. So with your kind of wider Uttanasana stance, you still might need your blocks, so make sure to use height under the hands if you need. We're going to individually attempt to bring one arm behind one knee at a time. So we're going to start with the right side. So you might need to bend the right knee a little bit. And you can move with your blocks in your hand if you need that. You're going to try to take your right hand behind your right heel from the inside of the leg. Okay, so you're getting very compact here. And then the work is to really kind of start to get lower and snuggle that shoulder behind the knee. And that might not be accessible today, but just knowing where you're going one day, someday. Okay, so we did that one side. Bring that hand back out. Attempting left side. Okay, so go ahead and bend the left knee. Shoulder dips low. Hand comes right behind the heel. And then we work the relationship of the shoulder and the back of the knee. And meanwhile, you're clamping your left knee toward midline. Good. All right. And then just for fun, and I know some people get triggered when I use the word fun, just see about doing both at the same time. Even if it's a mess, just see about it. So you'll bend both knees, bring both hands behind the heels. And then once you have the shoulders and knees connected, begin to straighten your legs back up. Okay, that's a very similar feeling to how you're going to feel in the pose later. Go ahead and release it. Nice. And now just walk the feet in so they're exactly hip distance. And then take a resting Uttanasana. Grab your elbows, let your head dangle. So if you remember my favorite definition of yoga as we advance our practice, it's to take more and more compact spaces and keep finding the space. Good. So you can come up to come down or you can come right down. We're going to move to gate. So this is the kneeling pose. And this is another great way to work with extending the inner thighs. So we're going to work with a kneeling blanket if that's something you need to support the comfort of your knees. Otherwise, your mat should be sufficient. And we'll work with one block to the right side. And we're going to we'll put the block in front of the inside of the right foot. And the alignment here again is 90-degree right knee over the ankle. The right heel should line up with your left knee if you were to draw a line across. And then your left shin is just directly behind the left knee. So take hold of, with your hand, press on the inner right knee. Take your left hand to your hip. And just take these initial moments here, gently rotating the torso away from the right knee, not overly so, only to correct so that we're not turning to the right. So we want shoulders and hips really squared up as if you're pressed up against a piece of plexiglass with the shoulders and hips. Okay, feel the right buttock kind of rolling under. Good. So going a little bit deeper, sliding your hand down to your block now, using the arm to keep that knee back and to keep the extension of the inner thigh. Roll your left shoulder back. A few breaths here. Wonderful. And on an inhale, bring yourself up and out of it. Okay, so now extend the right leg so that you have a straight right leg. Sometimes our feet don't always come all the way down, that's okay, but the direction of the foot is toward the floor. So one day, someday, your leg should be firm. So if you can touch your kneecap and it doesn't wiggle, you've got it. And then again, you're just gonna start with the block. Hand to your block, wrist right under the shoulder line, revolving your torso to the left just to correct from that kind of passive turning to the right that's happening right now. Go ahead and take that block a step lower if you can. So drop your block down to the next kind of lowest height. All right. And now to go just one last step farther, you're going to bend the right knee so that the right knee comes back. Don't move the foot. Right knee comes back above the ankle. Step the block back out a little bit to keep it under the shoulder. And you might be able to use your arms here, your arm, I should say, against the inner right leg to help you continue to deepen and rotate the torso. 5 breaths. Don't drop your crown, Sylvia. Lift your crown a little bit. There you go. Nice. And use an in-breath to kind of pull out of it. So lengthen out of it. And then step the right knee underneath your hip. And we'll set up second side. So we'll prop that left heel in line with the right knee. Left toes are turned out. Block is just kind of inside the heel and arch of the foot. We'll start just with the hand pressing to the inner knee. And that feeling of kind of revolving the trunk slightly right, just to square the shoulders and hips. Breathe into your left inner thigh. Compact the right hip toward midline. And then you're going to slide down your leg until your hand finds that block. You're just going a little deeper. Use the arm to press on the inner leg and help you revolve the torso. Give that left inner thigh some breath. Good. Maybe the block goes down a level. Maybe you're right at your edge here still. And on an inhale, lengthen upright. And now step the foot out farther until the leg is straight. Good. Toes maybe come all the way down. Maybe they're just kind of reaching toward the floor. And firming the leg. Go back to your block. Make sure you have the right amount of height, not too much, not too little. Keep revolving the torso. You guys look great. Breathe. And now last but not least, keeping the foot where it is. Start to bend the knee, take it right above the ankle, move the hand to the block so you could be consistent with the shoulder line. Use the arm against the leg to help you continue to revolve the torso and keep the knee back. Give it some breath. Wonderful. And use an inhale to lengthen yourself upright. Go ahead and have a seat in Vajrasana, sitting on the heels. or child's pose if you need to modify. And just take a couple moments. It's the first day I'm seeing snow and I'm actually like so hot. So maybe that's kind of interesting. Sometimes we overdress, I guess, when we see the snow. All right, so we're gonna do a couple lunges. Now that we have this nice elongation to the inner thighs, we're gonna now go back to that kind of moving toward midline and the clamping action that we need to use eventually in Kormasana. So if you have difficulty with the one knee down in a lunging position, you'll want to put that kind of soft blanket down for your knees. We're going to face the short end of the mat and we're going to work with 2 blocks. And the 2 blocks are going to go kind of toward, one will be in the center of the top of the mat and one will be over to the left. Okay, so you're going to kneel on the left knee, you're going to step the right foot forward. And just so we kind of start right at our edge with the legs, bring your hands onto your blocks and your right arm should be inside the right knee. Curl your left toes under, extend the leg. And then as if you're going to place the knee directly in its shadow, attempt to lower the kneecap directly down. So this is how we get the leg nice and long. Hopefully you're still with the blanket. If not, you're going to have to get up and move the blanket. It's always fun. And we're going to keep it right here actually on the blocks, but I'm going to welcome you to go a little lower if you can on the blocks. So this can happen in one of 2 ways. You can lower the blocks or you can lower down to your forearms, or sometimes you can do both. So just see about how low you can get. And we're attempting something to think about here to get your inner right knee against your right shoulder. And that could be a one day, someday again, but you're just kind of, it's always helpful to know where we're going, what we're doing. So once you have a knee and shoulder relationship, you're going to squeeze the knee toward the shoulder. And let your neckline be neutral. So there's not much to see anyway, probably. Just look straight down at the floor. That's going to help you kind of ease into this. Put enough pressure down in your hands or elbows that you're not feeling your shoulders crowding your ears. We're going to try to stay 5 more breaths. And just to give a little relief to right hip, if you are on the forearms, we're all going to be back on the hands on the blocks. You're going to turn your right toes out 45 degrees so they're kind of consistent with the edge of the mat, the corner of the mat, sorry, not the edge, the corner. And then you're going to roll out to your outer right foot, use your right hand against the knee or thigh, push, 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 and turn your chest to the right. Let's take a little bit of a rotation here. Good. And now come out of it slowly and sit back in child's pose for just a couple moments. Knees wide, feet together. You might prop your hands on those blocks since they're right there. It's kind of a nice way to take the pose sometimes, to put the hands in line with the shoulders. And now second side. So again, we'll move the blocks now over to the right. So we'll have one block at the right edge of the mat and one block at the center. Step the left foot forward. Move up on your blanket if you know your knee is going to be kind of dropping off the edge. Make sure you're going to have blanket under the knee when we do the stepping it back moment. And for now, your left foot should be directly in front of your heel. So hands on the blocks, curl the right toes under, extend the leg. And then attempting to land that knee directly below its shadow right now, or onto the shadow if there was one. Take the knee straight down, you're back on the top of the foot. And now we're going to get nice and low. So as low as you can go, maybe you're going to come to the forearms, maybe you're going to take the blocks down, maybe you're going to do both. You're getting into that low position
And then you're going to hug your left knee toward your left shoulder. Let your head be relaxed. Your neckline is smooth. There's no crease. And even though you're clamping the knee, try to soften the sole of the foot. Don't squeeze or clamp the foot. That's kind of wasted energy. And you'll know you have a good knee clamp if your inner foot has as much weight as your outer foot. Just 3 more breaths. After your next exhale, you can use the following inhale to come back to your tall arms, your straight arms, and just turn your left toes out 45 degrees. Make sure you have a prop, a block under your right hand. You're going to let your left knee fall out, so you're now resting on the outer edge of your left foot. Use your left hand to the knee or thigh, just pushing outward. Curl your chest to the left. Spiral your torso. And your left hip should be really ready for this after doing all that work. And after an exhale, inhale to come out of that big twist. Step the left knee onto the blanket, knees to the edge of the mat, edges of the mat. Sit back for child's pose. Again, maybe use the blocks of the hands, maybe not. All right. So now we're kind of nearing the kind of the Kormasana pose, but we're going to do some more work before that, but we're going to do it all seated. So you'll want to be sitting on a significant thickness of a corner of a blanket. We're going to do the Upavista Konasana. So this is the wide legs seated. And then those of you that have a bolster at home, this is a great pose to use it when we fold forward. If you don't have a bolster, you can improvise rolling 2 blankets to kind of the same dimensions as bolsters. So that's a good way to kind of improvise. And then however you're working it, you can also work with the edge of a chair seat. If you don't have lots of blankets or you need a little bit more height today, you can put a chair right in front of you and be resting the head on the chair, the edge of the chair seat. If you're working with the rolled blankets or the bolster, you're going to set up what I call an incline with 2 blocks. So you put the highest block where your head will be, farther away from you, and then a medium height block just in front of that. And then you'll angle that bolster so that the lowest point is nearest you and the highest point is farther away. And then I usually add something, and you can use your fists if you don't have an additional prop, but I usually like to add something for the forehead, not only because it brings the height up, but also because it leaves a space for the nose so that we're not smushing our noses into props and suffocating, which is never what we're trying to do. So hopefully by now you've set something up. You're going to be sitting right on the corner of the blanket. Your tailbone is there, but your sitting bones are not. So just take a moment to move the flesh out from under the sitting bones. You might have to scoot forward on that little corner so that the sitting bones are down. Your legs are at their kind of widest. Your toes are in line with your heels, and you're firmly pressing down with the legs. And then from there, come forward. Okay, so again, you have your fists. If you need to add some height, you have blocks. You could put a block under the forehead. There's not a wrong way to use your props as long as they're supporting your pose. And as you fold forward, remember our legs like to kind of get distorted here once we tilt forward. So you have to do some extra effort to keep your toes above your heels. We're going to be here a couple of minutes, so you might notice over the course of those 2 minutes that your body is ready to go deeper. So you're going to have to, play with the props to accommodate. We'll have another minute here. Keep working with your breath. Make sure you're really tracking with the edge, that you're not in a complacent kind of screensaver mode. Just 5 more breaths. Right. Inhale, just going to lengthen up. So we are going to do the pose to each side, even though the pinnacle pose today, Kormasana, is a symmetrical pose. It's straight ahead. The reason we're going to go to each side is because it's a great way to tap into further elongation of each leg. So we're going to, again, try to prop the head. We're going to be moving to the left to begin with. So again, your chair might come over the leg. We can't do the incline when we're over the leg. It doesn't quite work. But you can put a series of props on your leg. Any combination of props, just to meet the head to something. So it could be your own fists again. It could be, block, blanket, bolster combination. Doesn't really matter. Sometimes if you only have blocks, you can just work with 2 blocks, and you can kind of angle the blocks. You might have to hold them, but you can angle the blocks toward your forehead and work with that. So there's lots of ways. There's many combinations of props. But once you have what you need to the left, come back to sitting upright. And just tap into the right leg. It has to anchor for you. Otherwise the pose we won't make any progress really. You're going to press down that right leg. You're going to turn yourself really well toward the left leg. So the way I like to do this is kind of using my fingertips on the floor and just turning as well as I can to the left. And as you can't see that right leg any longer, but keep some awareness there so you know it's in position, it's working hard for you. And then try to maintain as much of that turn as you can to stay aligned. You'll come forward and rest the head. So it's always ideal if you can find passive arms to do that. But if you need to use your hands to hold your props, of course, you're going to need to use your hands. So if you are using your hands to hold your props, just really check in with your shoulders that they're as settled as they can be, even though you're probably still a little bit gripped in the shoulders. And just notice as you turn away from right leg, hopefully you're feeling some further elongation to the inner right thigh here. Okay, another minute and drop down if you need to track with your edge. If you're kind of not feeling as much, make sure to adjust your head supports. So just to give you some idea of the depth of Kormasana, eventually you're going to be forward folded with your chest and chin on the floor. So you're just really kind of working that edge, but not in a forceful way and not in an egotistical way, but really kind of finding this depth that maybe is a new depth. And sometimes that depth can only come from surrender. It cannot come from force. So to come out of this, we're going to stay low, like we're trying to get the torso under a fence. So just kind of start to crawl your hands to the middle space. And crawl the hands once you're in the middle space as far forward as you can, and just see about how close your chest is to the floor. And it's fine if it's a mile, but you're just kind of checking in. And then you'll crawl your hands toward the center body to bring your torso up. Whew, all right. So we'll do this very same thing to the right. You'll want to get your supports ready. You're going to start centered and upright once you have your supports ready. You're going to kind of engage your left leg, put it on duty. Try to shrink the distance behind the left knee. Anchor down with the leg, press the leg fully into the floor. Make sure the toes are above the heel. Then bring your hands to either side of your right thigh and turn yourself really well. And then when you really feel lined up with your breastbone and your right leg, try to evenly lengthen down. So the shoulders should be even. We don't have a sloping shoulder girdle. We have a very level shoulder girdle. And then prop the head. And another minute. Deep breaths. And now after the next exhalation, you, again, stay very low and just crawling the hands to the middle space between your feet. Once you're centered, then see about going a little bit farther out, crawling the hands forward. Your legs are still on duty. Toes above heels, legs pressing down, and you know your toes are above your heels. If you have to look, look. If you don't see what you thought you'd see, correct. And then crawl the hands toward center body to stack the spine. Okay, so now we get to try a few stages of Kormasana, the pose we've been talking about. This is the pose of the tortoise. As you know, tortoises can pull inside their shell. So it's a forward bend that actually prepares us for pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal, which is kind of the evolution of the practice of yoga. We move toward bliss. So pratyahara is after asana, after pranayama. So it's a really great preparatory pose for the quieting of the mind. So the first stage we're going to do is kind of a Marichyasana. I'm going to have you join the legs and shift forward off your blanket so that you can turn and sit on now the edge of the blanket. And we're not going to do Marichyasana the way we normally do it. We're going to use the pose as a way to get some of the links or the building blocks for Kormasana. So take both hands underneath your right knee and step the right heel toward the right sitting bone. And then raise the right arm and put the right shoulder as close to the right knee as you can. Good. You can extend the right arm now and just kind of take your fingertips to the floor, put a block under them if you need. And you're going to squeeze the knee toward the shoulder. And you're just going to gently turn your chest to the left. And you can look slightly off to the left as well. Good. Now inhale and come up. And we're gonna take the foot a little wider. So you're gonna kind of put your toes out 45 degrees. Your knee is definitely wider than the line of the hip. And then you're gonna go back to putting the knee and shoulder together and using your fingertips on the floor. Good. So again, pressing the knee toward the shoulder and turning your chest to the left. Good. Inhale to come out of it. Now step the foot a little bit beyond, so your heel is no longer under the knee. Your foot's a little bit farther forward, but keep the 45-degree toes. Okay, we still have a straight left leg. And now you're going to take your right hand and attempt to put it somewhere outside the space of the left leg. So you're feeding it, I meant to say right leg, sorry. You're taking the hand underneath the leg and outside. Good. Now again, squeeze the knee toward the shoulder and turn your chest to the left. Good. And now inhale. Slide the hand out from under your leg. Step the foot back in line with the sitting bone and extend the leg. Okay, so that was prep for the right leg. We're going to now do prep for the left leg. Scooping the hands underneath. Step the heel in line with the sitting bone, toes straight forward for this version. You can leave your right hand next to your hip. Raise the left arm. And then dropping the elbow, the shoulder, I should say. So get as low as you can, shoulder against knee. Extend the left arm so your fingertips are supporting you on the floor. And then turning as well as you can to the right, squeeze your knee toward your shoulder. Another exhale here. Inhale, come up. Good. So now we step the foot a little bit farther to the left. Turn the toes out. Go back to propping the knee against the outer shoulder. Extend the arm, use your fingertips. And again, turn, squeezing the knee against the shoulder. Good. Inhale, come up. And now threading the hand through that space between your left heel and buttock. Try to get the shoulder and knee as close together as you can. It's okay if it's not quite there, but just working in that direction. Shoulder and knee coming together, squeezing the knee toward the shoulder, turning the chest to the right. Good. Now inhale, sliding the arm out from under your leg, stepping your foot in, and extending the leg. Okay. Make sure you're still on the edge of the blanket. Now we're going to step both feet wide. And you just have to play with the placement of the feet. So if they're too close to you, you're going to round your lower back, which we don't want to start that way. We might finish that way, but don't start that way. So be perched on your sitting bones, the heels as far forward as you need to feel your sitting bones down rather than your tailbone. And then you're going to take your hands to prayer, thumbs against the breastbone. Use your elbows to spread the knees wider, but you're also squeezing the knees into the elbows. Bring your chest forward, not your chin, your chest. Good. Start to extend the arms and creep your fingertips through the spaces between your heels and buttocks. So your hands are going to come outside the legs. Okay. And I'll squeeze the knees in and try to move the chest forward. Okay, so you're almost there, the full pose. And this might be as far as you're going to go. But just so you know, the full pose is to start to slide the legs forward. Creep the arms down, bring the chest down. You're on your heels. And eventually, and I'm not there yet either, but the legs are directly in front of you. Keep rolling those knees in, even though your toes want to turn out. Roll the knees in, squeeze the knees in. Good. And now it takes some effort to get out of there. So start to release your arms, soften the legs, and put yourself in Baddha Konasana. Once your arms and legs are free, take the soles of the feet together. Grab onto the ankles or shins with your hands. And as you pull up there with the hand, you can roll the shoulders back. The feet should look like an open book. Let the knees angle down toward the floor. And just a few soft breaths. So to kind of soothe the back, we're going to take a supported bridge pose on our backs with a block. You can just kind of find your way down. It's bridge pose, so we don't really want to have a head blanket if you can avoid it. You can use a minimal one if you really need one, but the idea is to get the neck really toward the floor and the chin toward the chest. So once you're down on your back, your knees are bent, slide either the low or the medium horizontal block under the sacrum. And then bring your feet out a little farther than you normally would, just so your shins are kind of vertical. And then also step the feet just slightly wider than the hips. Unfold your arms with your palms up. Try not to activate here, so really taking on the support of the block and the floor. And just a few more breaths. If you're still kind of holding back, see if you can make yourself any amount heavier. See if you can lift your hips, slide the block out from under you, walk the spine down, and then walk the feet in hip distance. Stretch the arms wide and palms are against the floor. We'll come into Supine Twist just to finish before Shavasana. So cross your right leg over your left. Slide your left hip to the center of the mat. Let the right hip come above that. Let your legs fall to the left. And then using your left hand against your right leg, just to hold the legs, give them a sense of arriving and settling. Flipping the right palm to turn up and rolling your head to the right. Using an in-breath to transition back to center. And once you are there, you can uncross your legs, lift your hips, lengthen out your spine. Maybe the shoulders need to be adjusted back to alignment. Stretch the arms wide again. And then take your left leg over your right leg. Sliding your right hip to the center of the mat. The left hip stacks above it. The legs fall to the right. The right hand holds the left knee or thigh. Head rolls left and left palm turns up. And then really see about letting go, become heavy. Think about the spine as very supple, very soothed by each passing exhale. Try to fully surrender the legs where they meet the floor, where they meet each other. Let the breath ride over the left side body. Then when you sense it's time, you'll transition back to center and uncross your legs. Once you've lengthened out your torso, take any final movements that your body is asking for before we come into final resting pose. Also get what you need for support, like something under the knees, a blanket or a bolster, something under the head, over the body, over the eyes. Spend a little time making those fine-tuned adjustments, spacious limbs, rock the head and let the neck lengthen toward the floor, tilt the chin down. Let your feet fall out, big toes towards small toes. And just take the first few breaths, welcoming the heaviest parts of the body into the floor. Each time you exhale, they sink a little bit deeper. Relax your jaw. Feel the spaciousness of the inside of the mouth. Even relaxing your teeth into the gums. Soften around the eyes, the eyelids, and then deep into the sockets. Imagine the eyes resting on soft pillows. Smoothing out the brow line. Relaxing deep into the center of the head. And soften your jaw. If there's any fixed setting in your jaw, you can swallow once to help release it. You can take a soft smile. Without separating the lips, you could separate the teeth. Soften your throat. Bringing a sense of warmth and ease to the abdomen. Letting the effortful legs become completely passive and surrendered. Gaining spaciousness between thought waves, spaciousness between breaths, spaciousness in the body. The mastery of this pose is sustained state of presence. So as you notice the mind whirling off, Just come back to the breath. And you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, we'll start to just elongate the breaths. Maybe wiggling your fingers and toes or making little fists and then extending fingers. Maybe starting to rock the head from side to side. And folding your hands into your chest or belly. Bending your knees and sliding the soles of the feet to the floor. And then gently rolling to your right side. And as gently as you can, with least disturbance to the brain or the body, bring yourself to an upright seated position with an erect spine. Shoulders back. And hands joining once again in front of the heart. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. All right. Happy Friday, everybody. So we meet once more like this next Friday. If you're welcome to either just come to the Mondays or check out the studio class on Thursdays that will start in December. And if you have any questions, just email me or call me. All right. We'll see you soon.